Hey everyone, Bruce from What's Popping in. I just got out of the South African premiere of Wicked. A massive thank you to our friends over at URP South Africa for getting me to the premiere so that I could get this review to you on time as the embargo is lifted. Now let's chat about this film. If you haven't seen the musical, don't worry. I will not be putting any spoilers into this review. It is purely a spoiler-free review. From my perspective, and what I really went in thinking was, how is this going to translate from a beloved Broadway musical, a cult classic, if you will, of a musical onto the big screen? And arguably, and I would say for the most part, it works incredibly well. And that is in no small part due to a couple of factors. I think one of them being the cast. I think Ariana Grande is really great in her role. There's been a lot of buzz about her. I think she's a lot of fun. She has fun with her role. You can see she's having a great time on screen. I think Cynthia Erivo as Alphaba, as our lead, is very captivating, very engaging. Obviously, been some controversy around her in the media leading up to that. All of that aside, she does a great job in the film and really carries it alongside Ariana Grande really, really well. Two really noticeable performances that stood out were actually coming from Peter Dinklage, one of the GOAT professors at the university, at Shiz University, and then Jeff Goldblum. He's really great as the Wizard of Oz. I think we all knew this is the kind of role he would be drawn to, and he doesn't disappoint. He definitely gives those vibes of the Grandmaster from Thor Ragnarok, if you've seen that. Same energy for sure. Performances aside, I think where this film is strongest is in those set pieces. They have put meticulous detail, thought, and effort into the creation of the world of Oz in a very, very practical way, and that shows off on screen. It looks absolutely beautiful. A lot of these scenes look like they have been plucked off of a Broadway stage and put onto a back lot somewhere in Hollywood and shot absolutely beautifully. I think that is where the film really shines. What they then do is these massive choreographed scenes, obviously paying homage to the Broadway musical, bringing in the music, bringing in the songs, bringing in the dancing, and then having our characters play in a really fun way. So you do have this advantage, I think, over watching it in a theater, where in a theater your attention is wherever you as the audience are looking. In this case, the director makes very clear and concise decisions to make you look in a certain place, make you look in a certain direction that you would not have in a theater. It also allows for these quick cuts between several scenes. So you can actually have a single musical number taking place over several locations. For example, at the university, maybe one's in a classroom, one's in a courtyard, one's in the dormitory. All of those are quick cuts between each other, and it really flows seamlessly. It kind of extends the world that you're living in. So I think that does an incredible job of pulling you into the world of Oz. If you are a fan of Wicked, if you are a fan of the world of Oz, you're going to love this movie. You are absolutely going to be thrilled for 2 hours and 45 minutes. You heard me right. I think the total runtime, 2 hours and 43 minutes. It is a very long movie. And I think that ultimately this is where fans and audiences are going to be divided, is that we have part one of two. So again, very difficult to judge a film that is only part one of two, because obviously there's a lot of stories still to be told, and they have to kind of make some creative decisions with where they're going to flesh the story out and how they're going to split the two. For those who've seen the play, it ends at the end of Act 1. Ultimately, everything I've just said about how well the show does and how well the movie does in bringing those set pieces to the fore is where they are a victim of their own success in a lot of ways, because it feels like they created these massive set pieces, these huge stages, these incredible sets, but it feels like they then decided that they have to put all of that in the movie. It doesn't feel like they've edited it or trimmed it down. It does feel very heavy, very lengthy, very hefty. So if you're a fan of musical theatre in general, and of Wicked in particular, that is going to thrill you. If you are a general audience member wanting the story to progress, there are some massive pacing issues, in my opinion, particularly in the second act. I think we lose a huge chunk of momentum that we start to build up as the characters really start to get on their journeys and start forming their narrative arcs. We lose huge pieces of that momentum to these big set pieces that are perhaps a couple minutes too long here or there. And to put that in perspective, the movie, as I said, 2 hours and 43 minutes, the entire musical, which tells the entire story of Wicked, is 2 hours and 45 minutes with a 15-minute interval. We are now dealing with pretty much the same time, but for part one of the story. So it does feel like there's a lot of padding and being a little bit too self-indulgent in some of those scenes, which is, in my opinion, going to be what really alienates part of the audience. We did have, in our cinema in particular, huge swathes of the audience losing their mind and clapping as though we were in a live theatre performance. And I turned to the person next to me and I said, well, this is a really good example of something that's been adapted well, because people are viewing it and reacting to it as they would in a theatre. There are some great moments in this movie, if you are a fan of the Broadway musical, that you are going to lose your mind over. But we did have, at periods past the 2 hour mark, some individuals leaving the cinema, and I think it could just be bathroom breaks because it is a very, very long movie, or people maybe just feeling, it wasn't quite for them and making their way out. So for that reason, I think it could possibly be a film that polarizes fans. I think ultimately, at the end of the day, if you are a fan of musical theatre, if you are a fan of Wicked, it's a no-brainer to go and see this. I think a weakness for me was thinking about the fact that I knew that this was part one of part two. As soon as you sit down in the film, you realize it is part one, so you start naturally feeling like, okay, this should be a point where the film can end, and it doesn't. It carries carries on, and then it doesn't and it carries on, and you get past the 2-hour mark and you go, okay, well, where are they going to make that cut? And naturally making the cut at the end of Act 1 makes sense, but then they have really sort of included a full play's worth of work in that 2 hours and 45 minutes. So that is my biggest sort of criticism of the film, I think, is that they have been a little bit too self-indulgent, played maybe a little bit too much within the world, and you can tell they've had a lot of fun making the film. So it is a double-edged sword. They really have enjoyed their time making this film. As an audience, I think it's going to be one or the other. You're absolutely going to love this film, or you're going to hate it. You're either going to go out and say, that is incredible, I had a really, truly awesome cinematic experience. The film ends on a real high note, on a real interesting point, as it would if you were in the theater and you're going to go out in that intermission and discuss what you think is going to happen next. It does that. It ends on that massive high note, but now we have to wait for part 2. And I think that could leave some members disappointed. But now it's over to all of you. I want to know what you think. Are you excited for Wicked? Have you seen it already? And if you have, is it too long? Are you excited for part 2? I want to hear from you and engage in the comment section down below. So let me know your thoughts, and if you haven't already, please go ahead and like this video, hit that subscribe button, and we will see all of you in the next video.